All right, everyone. Good evening or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. But um, we're excited to have Joelle Northrup here, CEO of Deep Lawn, and really excited to have him on. We checked out his product, and we feel could be a great fit for a lot of the businesses in this group here. Kind of goes along the lines of streamlining your business and even using some of the pretty cool AI stuff as well. So, thank you for joining us, Joelle.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Carla. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you know, first off, if you can please, Joelle, start off with your story. What's your background?
Yeah, so it all started when I was about 14 years old. So I grew up, my brother and I grew up, and family grew up in the Midwest, in the state of Iowa, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And when I was 14, I wanted to find a way to make some money, to be able to spend and also to save up for college. So my brother and I started we started mowing lawns on the side. We didn't actually start a business yet. We just started mowing lawns for neighbors, doing little landscaping jobs for family and friends here and there. And then when I turned 18, um, we incorporated and became an actual business and started doing lawn care. And we had many different transformations throughout the 9 years or so, or 8 years that we owned that business, my brother and I. We got into the larger landscape installations. We did big hardscape jobs and patios around pools and outdoor kitchens, and larger $100,000 projects. We for a while, we did landscape lighting, outdoor waterscapes. Then we got into more the maintenance side and really built the mowing side of the business. And then we acquired a few mowing companies in the space. And then eventually we realized some of the margins for mowing were not as good as the lawn fertilization weed control. So we sold off the mowing side of the business and just went all out on just lawn fertilization weed control, kind of competing with True Green and some of the other companies in the area, and really focused on that for about 3 years, built it up. We had like 1,200 clients. We got up to, we varied in how many employees we had, but it got up to 10, around 10 full-time employees. And then in late 2019, we got acquired by a larger company in the area. It was an opportunity to kind of move in a different direction. Was finishing at the University of Iowa. I got a computer science degree, and it was a great offer. So we decided to sell the company, and I moved down to Austin, Texas, and started working for Samsung, as a machine learning and AI engineer. But I'm an entrepreneur, so it was hard for me, having owned a business my whole life, to work for another company. So on the sides, at night and on the weekends, I started building out what is Deep Lawn. And my brother is also one of the co-founders. The goal with Deep Lawn was really to solve a few problems. Every lawn care, I think anybody in lawn care can probably relate that the springtime is pretty hectic. So if it's not hectic, you probably need to put some more money in marketing or something. Um,
Sure.
so we wanted to make it easier to quote services. So we built a product that made it super easy, where anybody from their office on the phone could give a quote right over the phone. Within a few seconds, can get a measurement for a lawn and give a quote. And then we also, just what I've noticed, I love technology, and today you almost can't live without it. Using Uber, Amazon, Uber Eats. What I noticed is people my age, and especially younger, really, really started to, expect technology to be used. They expect instant gratification. Nobody has patience anymore. So um, we built out a product that allowed lawn care companies to sell their services directly on their website. So with our tool, you can place on your website as a lawn care or pest control company, and a homeowner can go on, search their address, and sign up. It'll generate a measurement. It'll show them the services you have available, where they're located, and then they can purchase. So though when I got out of lawn care, I had this itch to kind of solve those problems and make it easier for lawn care companies and really build tools for the generation that we're in. And so that's what Deep Lawn is. So I'm also an investor in a lawn care company in the greater Houston area. So on a daily basis, my company uses my product. So I also use it actively, which I think is important because a lot of people will build a product that they never use or they would never use. But I'm really building and continuing to add new features to Deep Lawn to kind of scratch my itch and to solve problems that I have, and my company has daily. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm in Austin, Texas. That's where I live. That's most of the teams in Austin, Texas. Although a few of the Deep Lawn employees, Deep Lawn team, is based in Maryland and Florida.
No, I think that's great. I think you're right about like instant gratification and people needing an answer right away. Um, and with this software, how many hours would you say that you save on average with sales?
Oh, that it depends on the company. But our tool that helps tremendously. So I was at a big office. There's a company, Emerald Lawns, in Round Rock, Texas. They have about 20,000 customers. Their sales team uses Deep Lawn to generate quotes. So
Mhm.
prior to Deep Lawn, their salespeople they would drive to the property, even if it was 45 minutes to an hour away. They would get a
Right.
measuring wheel. They would measure the lawn, and they'd give a quote on paper in person. And that process can take, um, up to 2 hours, maybe more sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the paper gets lost, and then you have to call them up or the
Oh,
camera turned off. Um, yeah,
yeah.
I'm not sure why. You can still hear me, right, Carla
Yeah.
and Joe? Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
So our product within a minute, within about 60 seconds, you can generate a quote and send it to a client. So for every quote that they give, they save sometimes 45 minutes to 2 hours.
Right. Wow.
So tremendous amount of savings there. With our e-commerce tool that they place on their website, homeowners 24/7. So whether it's 2 a.m. on a Friday, a Friday morning or midnight on a Sunday, homeowners can buy services. They can sign up and they go and shop and add to cart. So there's a lot of savings there with time and resources, and it really makes them more efficient. And they can also get that quote to the homeowner sooner. There's no need to wait.
Yeah. Yeah. Making money in your sleep, right? With this tool.
Yeah.
Today. And I know that so you're really big on an AI, of course, with this tool and everything. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you're seeing that kind of evolution in the space?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think definitely lawn care has been a little bit the lawn care industry, pest control has been a little bit behind on AI. And I'm sure everyone has seen Chat GPT, they've heard it, all the hype. And so our product is more of it more uses computer vision and rather than an autonomous human or autonomous robot, which there's a lot we could get into about autonomous robots and mowing robots. But our product utilizes aerial and satellite imagery to automatically map out all the grass areas of a property. So from satellite, lawn care companies typically will quote based on the square footage of the lawn. And we pull in multiple sources for aerial imagery, satellite imagery, and using artificial intelligence, machine learning, automatically map out and measure all of the grass areas. So within a few seconds, it'll immediately calculate, whether there's 4,000 square feet of grass and all of that.
Very cool. And what service lines is this best for?
So we work with primarily lawn care companies. There's a bulk of services: lawn fertilization, weed control, mowing companies. But we've started to work with a lot more pest control companies. We also can generate data on the perimeter of the house. We have house square footage data. We have total lot area, besides lawn area. And so we have a lot of pest control companies that use that, mosquito companies, and then some home cleaning companies as well.
Very nice. Awesome. And I would say that this, when you were creating this, you probably were thinking about all the problems and issues that you face, especially dealing with a large volume of potential customers and just trying to maintain that contact. But it sounds like it's definitely a problem solver there. And then I guess when it comes to the sales process, do you have any recommendations for the group, as a whole, as you're looking at the sales process and, in things that kind of you've seen work best?
Yeah. And I apologize, my video is not turning on. So I'm sorry about that. So yeah, Joe, what I've seen, we work with a lot of companies, and it's great to get perspective, because we pretty much have lawn care pest control companies in every state. We don't have any in Hawaii or Alaska, but with most of the states and also in Canada. And one thing we've seen, there was actually a study 2 years ago that 85% of homeowners choose the company that are looking for lawn care pest control services. They choose the company that gives them the first estimate. So the first thing I would say, one of the most important things, is make sure that you're the first to give the quote. Just being the first one, the first quote in the hand of that homeowner is going to work wonders. That'll immediately increase your close rate. So that's important. Two, utilize all the best tech for how to give a quote. When a homeowner calls in asking for a lawn care quote, now, if they're asking for a landscape installation, or if they're asking for a lighting quote or an outdoor patio, you're probably going to have to go on site. But if they're asking for a mowing quote or a fertilization weed control quote, or typical pest control lawn maintenance quote, you should definitely be the first one to give the quote. You should not have to go on site, unless absolutely necessary. So there are cases where it's entirely covered in trees and there's no way to discern where the property goes. You may need to go on site, but for most of them, you want to be able to give a quote right there on the phone, email it to the homeowner, or text it to them, and allow them to sign up. Or if they come to your website at 2 a.m, do you have a way for them to sign up? Some people want to just knock it out and take care of it without speaking to anybody. So those are things. If you can build systems in place to quote quickly and just get that quote to the homeowner, it's very valuable. Also, just having your pricing just as part, and this might not be as more of the sales process, but more overall, having your pricing really dialed down, like figuring out your numbers. Y'all, Joe, you and Carla know numbers better than I do. So speaking to the choir, but just every round, some of the better companies we work with that really track their numbers, after every lawn care round, for like fertilization, weed control, or every few months for mowing, they'll run the numbers on how they did for each property or each route. and they'll figure out where they're profitable and where they may be losing money. There are many routes for lawn care companies that are not profitable. So a lot of, a smart company will look at their numbers. They'll figure out if they need to drop a route, if maybe their service area is too large. A lot of companies are too focused on expanding their service areas rather than building more density, which minimizing drive time is very, very important. So, we could speak about that a lot. There's a lot with density, but having good numbers and figuring out, to ensure that you are profitable, because you can sell a lot of work, but if the jobs are all over the place, if they're 2 hours away, um, you know, it's likely you're losing money on them.
Very nice. Um, and we have someone in the comments, Dennis Tursky, mentioned that he uses Deep One and he highly recommends it. But if anyone has questions in regard to Deep One, what it does, any questions about lawn care business as well, Joel not only has operated a company, he's currently a part of one as well, and he's bought multiple companies and also exited, um, as well. So, any questions, please put in the comments. And Joel, I know you had touched on pricing, right, and kind of the importance of knowing the financials and price it correctly. Um, does Deep Lawn help with that in regard to calculations? Does it integrate in that way?
Yeah. So it's very important that a company builds like systems in place, pricing tables for the lawns that they do. We come across on a daily basis. I come across a lot of companies that do not have pricing matrices. They don't have a pricing matrix to properly price for lawn mowing or fertilization, weed control. A lot of your costs or time, how long it takes, are entirely based on how large the lawn is. So it's important, first of all, to build out a pricing matrix and properly ensure that you make enough to cover fertilizer or weed control costs and all that, which anybody who does fertilization, weed control, Dennis can speak to this. Costs have gone up tremendously for a lot of fertilizers with inflation and supply chain issues. So just building a pricing matrix to make sure that you cover costs. It needs to cover the time to get there. Obviously, so the smart companies we work with, they have a unique pricing matrix. They account for the drive time to get to a property, so they know where you're located, and depending on where you're located, they may charge more. So certain parts of the city or certain neighborhoods close to the shop are priced differently than neighborhoods or cities further out. So I think that's important. A lot of people don't discriminate in a way based on how far you are, how far a customer is from your shop. So that's important to think about, or at least be aware about. And then two, based on lawn square footage, or if you're a snow removal company, based on driveway square footage and sidewalk distance or square footage. Those are important data points, because not all properties are the same. Some driveways are, 4 stalls wide and long, and others are smaller. Some lawns are small, and some are acres, multiple acres. So just having that as a first step is important. And then, the geo pricing. So within Deep Lawn, we have a tool that I built because our company needed it. Being able to price differently based on the area, based on the neighborhood, based on the zip code. You have all these tools available to price differently, based on where you're at, and that's powerful, to ensure that you're making money. And I made this mistake at my business. So I was really ambitious, and I wanted to grow our customer base. So we started marketing in a few cities that were 2 hours away. we thought, okay, we'll build a customer base here, in all these cities and grow. But because of drive time ended up, we got a few hundred customers in these other cities, but drive time ate up a lot of our profits. And I think it's more common than you think. Companies are more focused on expanding their service areas and going into new markets rather than building more density in existing neighborhoods and existing cities. The most profitable companies have really tight routes. So as a route, if you're a route manager or an operations manager, you want to ensure that your technicians or your lawn care operators are not driving all day, because when they're driving, they're not bringing in revenue, they're not producing money. It's not efficient time. So it's important to look at your routes and really focus on minimizing windshield time. And if you have a dense neighborhood, if you're able to build, in a couple of some of these neighborhoods in Texas, for instance, have 1,200 or so properties in them. If as a company, if you get 400 of those, 400 lawns or 400 properties in a small dense neighborhood, that's probably going to be more profitable for the company than having 2,000 customers spread out in the whole of Houston, in greater Houston area. So sometimes sometimes thinking small can actually be the better be the better route. And I'm kind of talking all over the place here, so kind of threw a lot at you. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
no, I think that's tremendous advice, especially for people, starting out or thinking about expanding. Because sometimes doing more doesn't actually translate to the bottom line.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that takes some trial and error for some companies. But I think for those that are listening, really, really kind of, taking this advice, I think is crucial, because we see it on the accounting side and the financials, when
Yeah.
companies almost have to halt their growth because, they're not doing things, that may be the most efficient or, you know, the most streamlined ways of going about it. So
Yeah.
is there any other items that you see, common problems companies, going through, or issues that, you feel are important to kind of touch on?
I think building a good web presence, yeah, everyone talks about it these days. It's kind of common knowledge, but it's important to really, really build out a good web presence, make it super easy for homeowners to find you. More and more people are searching on their mobile devices. They're looking on Google to find your services, to look up lawn care Houston or lawn care in New York. So just building a good web presence and having a mobile compatible website is very important. I was speaking to a company earlier today, and their website is not mobile compatible, and it looks like it was from the 1900s, or the late 1900s, 1999. There's a lot of tools out there to build a mobile compatible website, and have a fast responsive website, and I think that's important. So it's good to always stress that. And then what else? Yeah, there's a lot of tools. Deep Lawn, our company, we're building some products that help build density. So being able to micro target homeowners in specific neighborhoods. Traditionally in the past, and I know a lot of companies that still do door hangers, or when they're on a property, they'll put door hangers on the 5 nearest neighbors, or they'll send postcards to the 5 nearest neighbors, or 10 nearest neighbors. That can go a long way in building density and increasing profits. I was talking to another friend about this. If you think about it, if DoorDash, if they load up, get groceries or get a food delivery, and they bring it all the way to a property or a neighborhood and drop it off, they're not making that much money. If they pick up groceries and bring that to 3 neighbors, they're probably making tremendous amount more profit. They're driving less per hour. So that's something to think about. How do you grow your customer base in neighborhoods and specific markets, and I think going over the numbers every quarter or every round is important. It helps because what a lot of companies will find is there are some neighborhoods or some zip codes where you actually lose money. It might not be profitable. They may be more cost conscious. The homeowners there may not have a lot of extra spending revenue, extra spending money. So it pays to be wise in who you target, where you target, and then knowing your numbers to make sure if you do target a neighborhood, you're actually going to make a profit. We're all in business to make a difference, but also to make profit. And to make a difference, we have to be able to pay ourselves. We have to be able to pay our employees. So knowing your numbers is very, very important.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it reminds me of a conversation I was having with a business owner a few weeks ago, and we noticed that their labor efficiency was low. And they said that it was because of their route density that their laborers kept getting stuck in traffic. And fuel expense was also double the industry average. So it made a lot of sense. And then, so they were going to go back and fix a few things on that end. It's not going to be overnight or anything, but like you said, it really digs into your bottom line when you have people, like you said, stuck in traffic. They have to go fetch materials out of their way. They're making more pit stops at gas stations. So that's like another thing where they may be hanging out, grabbing a bite, whatever it is. So it all of that time that is like doesn't really stand out on your P&L anywhere, right? But when you measure things like that, it just brings those things to light. So no, I totally agree with you. And
Yeah, and there's definitely an opportunity cost to it as well. Instead of traveling, you could be producing more revenue and working on more lawns. And a big
Yeah.
misconception we see, Joel, is that people may think, oh, it's more of just the fuel expenses, but it's
Right.
not having a good route density also means that you're paying the wages, right? That's the biggest expense of a service-based company like a landscaping company. And whatever you can do to maintain operations and have them generating revenue and working, you have to do, right? So I think that, and I mean, you probably know better than anyone, Joelle, especially, working with a high volume of customers, back at the lawn care company and, even at the company you're working at now, it's, and that's what we tell our clients too. I mean, the route density is one of the biggest, influences when it comes to the profit. So those are great points there. And we also included the link to Deep Lawn in the comments, and the fact that it's so streamlined and automated, to me, I see only positives of adding something like this to a website. It's you save sales time of being on the phone and even the travel time. So I would definitely recommend for people to look into this. And anything else, Joelle, that you'd like to add before before we wrap up here?
Yeah, no, I would say, some contractors, some lawn care company owners, they may be weary to add like a storefront, an online shop to their website. And they're worried that somebody will see their pricing and, get scared off. But I think in the day we live in, people they're used to going to Amazon or Walmart.com or any of these and seeing a price and being able to sign up. So times have definitely changed, and I think they're going to continue as like the Zoomer. I'm a millennial. I'm at the end of the millennial generation, but I know Zoomers, my younger siblings, and they're all even more used to and addicted to tech than I am, and we probably all are. I'm constantly looking at a screen or coding or talking to people remotely. So it's just important that your website, can evolve. Your company evolves with the times and makes it easier for homeowners to be able to sign up, and you remove the friction. So I think that is important, and it's something you almost have to constantly be thinking about as a business. How do I make sure that we answer the phone every time? We don't want the phone. We don't want a homeowner going to a voicemail. Otherwise, they're going to call the next person on Google, the next
Yeah.
company. So just being obsessing about that and building systems in place to be able to give pricing and allow customers to be able to purchase your services is just something you got to constantly think about and constantly evolve with the times.
Very nice. No, this is, great, great product there, Joel. We had fun talking with you here, but thanks for coming on here today.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it, y'all. Sorry my camera wasn't working for a little while there. It just randomly off. But I'm supposed to be a tech person, but
No, Zoom Zoom will do it to the best of us. For
were there
sure.
any other questions? Did anybody have any questions on anything? Or
Um, I'm not sure. I don't believe so,
okay.
off the bat, but I'm sure people will ask it soon. So
Perfect.
Well, great,
Awesome.
y'all. Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you for this time. And yeah, if anybody has any questions about Deep Lawn, feel free to email me, joel@deeplawn.com.
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you, Joel.